Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today we are going to play around with some simple embossing techniques and a brand new 3D embossing folder. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, we are going to play around with a brand new embossing folder, which is called the Sunflower 3D Embossing Folder. So I'm going to share 3 very simple techniques for using this folder. And of course, you can use it with any embossing folder that you have on hand. Okay, so the first technique that I want to share with you is this technique where I have some color in the background here that I added with some ink blending. And then I'm going to show you the fun way that you can add this dark color over the top. So we're going to do a little ink blending, and then we're going to do a fun little technique with our ink pad. All right, so basically what you want to do is you want to emboss a piece of cardstock. You can use whatever size you want. I'm just using a 3 3/4 by 5-inch piece. I've already embossed it with this Sunflower 3D embossing folder. So this is the embossed raised side, but actually we're going to flip it over and we are going to use the debossed side. So this is kind of the indented side. And what we're going to do is just add a variety of different colors. So I'm going to start with Pecan Pie, and we're just going to use the blending brush and just add color right in the center here. And we'll do that on both of these flowers. We'll just add it right in the center. Next, we're going to use some Darling Duckling, and we're going to add some yellow to these flowers. All right, next we're going to use the Garden Green. Then we'll just go ahead and add some green to these different leaves. You don't have to worry about getting green over the top of the leaves, and I'll show you why after we get this green on here. So it kind of looks messy, I know, but wait until you see what happens when we add the early espresso ink. All right, so once you've completed all the ink blending, now we're ready to make the magic happen. So we are going to use early espresso, and basically we're going to do an ink pad dragging technique. So we're just going to drag this right over the top, and you want to kind of use a light hand. The harder you press, obviously, the more of the early espresso ink you will get on your project. So we're just going to go lightly first, and we'll see how that looks. So that looks amazing. And then we'll do the other side, and we'll just lightly go over the top. And then you could go back over if you wanted to add a little bit more ink. So we could actually drag this again, just lightly drag it and add a little bit more ink up here. So you can do that as many times as you want to get the effect that you're looking for, but I think we'll just stick with this. So this looks quite amazing. So that is basically the technique. Now you can use this to create your card. So this is what the finished card looks like. So I just added a little 3/4 inch wide piece of pattern paper off to the side, and I popped it up on an early espresso card base. So very simple and just a really neat way to use this particular embossing folder. So besides creating it in portrait style, of course, you can turn your card and use it in the landscape style. So this time I just added a 1-inch wide piece of that pattern paper, but the design is very similar. It just gives you a fun way to use the embossing folder and just a really great look for your card. All right, the second way that you can use this embossing folder is actually very similar to the first. So we're going to flip it over and we're going to use that debossed side. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to actually add our early espresso ink first. So on the other one, I colored it all in and then added the early espresso, but this time we're just going to go right over the top and we're going to add the early espresso ink, and we'll do it on this side. And let's go one more right down the middle. All right, so once you have that all complete, then you can use your stamping blends, and basically you just want to color this in using your stamping blends. So you would just go around and add all the different colors. So I have the Darling Duckling is what I'm using, just the light shade. And then I'm using the light shade of Old Olive just to color in the leaves. And then of course you can use the dark shade to just add a little bit more shading. But I think with the early espresso ink, it gives it some really nice shading. And now let's add a little bit of pecan pie right to the center here. So this just gives you an idea of how to color this in after you've added that early espresso ink all over the embossed side of this cardstock. So once you have completed all the coloring, this is what it will look like with the Old Olive and that Darling Duckling and pecan pie. So it gives it a really fun look. And so the third way that you can use the embossing folder is to create this embossed piece. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay, so the third way that you can use this embossing folder is actually to use it with some two-tone cardstock. So that's what I have here on the side, along with this piece that I colored with the Stampin' Blends. So I'm going to show you how I did this. So you're just going to take any size cardstock. I'm just using a 1.5 by 5 inch piece of this two-tone cardstock. So it's a lighter color on the back and it's a darker on the front. This is pecan pie. And you just emboss it with that 3D embossing folder. And then you're just going to use a little sanding block. So I have an old Stampin' Up sanding block. And you're just going to run it across and pull up some of the white that is in this two-tone cardstock. So we're just going to sand the higher edges. So this time we're using the raised side of the embossing folder instead of the debossed side. And you just want to pull up some of that cardstock so you get a little bit of white and you get a little bit of color. And then of course, this is what it looks like on the card. So it just adds a lot of texture to this card, some depth and dimension. And then here is just another sample that I created with the lighter brown. So you can see what the light brown looks like and what the darker brown looks like. But both create just a really fun look for your cards. Okay, so there you go. Now you have 3 very simple embossing techniques that you can use with any embossing folder that you have on hand. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.